What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard podcast. I am Rob Stats Guerrera. It is Thursday. You know what that means. Levin Black is here. Hi, Levin.
Yahoo!
That's as excited as he gets, everybody. Please, before we continue, subscribe to the YouTube page, youtube.com/@statsonfire, and please rate, review, and follow both the Gold Standard and the Niners Nation podcast networks. I know you're probably tired of hearing me say that. We're getting to the end of the line, I promise. Hopefully by the end of this week, we should get a resolution there.
Yeah, I was gonna
Regardless,
say this is our last one, I think, because
I
a week
hope
from now is March.
that's the plan. So we'll see. But if you do leave a review, I promise you we will see it. We will read it on the show. Last week, you stunned the world, Levin, by revealing that you worked in a strip club, but you couldn't remember the name. And you said it was like something like Four Aces or something terrible like that. So what we did was we asked you for the strip club names near you because there are some fantastic strip club names. This review
Hold
comes
on, I
from.
did figure it out. I
Oh,
googled
okay.
it.
What was it?
It was. Remember, I said it was something Aces. I could have sworn Aces. It was an Ace of Diamonds was their logo, but it was Chances Are was their name.
Chances are that's not terrible.
And I
This
also remembered more about how it happened. They didn't have anybody. It was literally two seniors who just showed up at the strip club before they actually like started for the night and was like, "Hey, we were wondering if you wanted to sponsor our soccer team," and managed to get to the manager. And the manager, it only cost like $200 to get some jerseys made. That's how it happened.
Yes, Levin played on a recreational sports team that was sponsored by the strip club.
Yes,
Niner
I
fan
was
in Hunt.
15.
Totally appropriate. Niner fan in Huntington Beach says 5 stars, best 49er podcast. Love that Rob got this going so quickly after the sad news. Appreciate all the insight from everyone and the support from the old Niners Nation team. In regards to the Gold Standard show, Captain Creams near Irvine, California. Awesome name of a strip club. Cheers, Huntington Beach Niner fan. That's outstanding. That's really good. I see. I knew we would
uh,
get some good ones.
yeah, that's good. It would also be a great nickname to have.
Okay. So you started off as like a good thing, and then you just
Well,
took
I'm
it.
not saying me.
You took it to a place it didn't need to go.
Can you imagine that being your nickname? Hey, what's up, Captain Creams?
Nope. And I'm not
I-
going
Is
to.
is that the nickname of the American Pie guy?
Jason Biggs?
Yeah,
I
that'd
don't.
be a good nickname for him because
All right, we
big burly.
all know why it would be a good nickname for him. Let's move on to what we're going to talk about in this show. Obviously, the big story is the Brock Purdy surgery getting delayed. We'll get to that, how that benefits or changes things, I should say, for Trey Lance. Tim Kawakami has a very interesting column in The Athletic, made some offseason predictions that we'll dive into. And somebody was released by the Tennessee Titans that may be an interesting target for the San Francisco 49ers. Let's start with the Brock news, Levin. I was sitting around a couple nights ago thinking my 49ers in 5 was done. I was playing some video games. All of a sudden, bloop, I get the little tweet from Tom Pelissero, and Brock Purdy's surgery gets delayed. And here we are back on this merry-go-round from hell where no matter what happens, we don't know what's going on with the quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's not good news. So I definitely don't want to present it as that. It could end up being terrible news, and we just don't know that yet. We don't know. I don't believe pretty much anything that's being said right now in terms of, oh, they still expect it to be the six
Right.
month time frame, and at this point, I don't think they can know, especially if they're still swelling. It means they can't get as good of an image. I will say though that it made me wonder, okay, when did Nick Mullins get his surgery? How long did it take him to have his surgery after the injury? And the answer is 37 days. At this point, as of Thursday, Brock Purdy's at, I believe, 26 days. So if he has the surgery sometime, basically, I would say before like March 10th, he's in that same time frame as Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins was a 6-month recovery. He was ready to go at training camp. He had it on January 26th, and he was ready to go for training camp literally 6 months, almost to the day later with the Eagles. And then I just think if it goes past that, though, that's when I'm no longer going to sit here. Right now I'm kind of in a holding pattern. Like, I'm not saying it's absolutely terrible. I'm just worried. If it gets past, I would say March 10th, that's when I'm probably going to go nuclear and think, okay, like if this guy ever makes it back, then it's gravy on the train. It's a cherry on top, but you can't count.
But even that sort of estimate is assuming he has the 6-month UCL
Right.
repair, which we still don't know. And I really think the fact that this hybrid surgery, Brock found out about it. He told us all about it. It's a distinct possibility, especially like we got into. If there's any kind of uncertainty by the surgeon during the procedure, it's a lot of stuff is up in the air. Let's just say that. And I think it's interesting, Levin. We've had two quarterbacks with injuries. Trey Lance had a setback, and yes, people, it was a setback. I'm tired of arguing about that on Twitter. And now Brock Purdy did not get surgery when we thought he was going to get surgery. It's like, man, not only do we have multiple quarterbacks get injured, now we've had multiple quarterbacks not have things go according to plan.
And from the team perspective, I think their date of wanting the surgery done and hoping for is March 13th, because that's when the legal tampering period opens and they can start talking to free agents. And basically what that means is that's when they need to know
Right.
if Purdy is likely to be back at the beginning of the season, and thus they don't really need to go get a true, veteran backup who, if Trey Lance gets injured again, can step in and still keep their chances of making the playoffs alive. If he doesn't have the surgery by then, I think you have to go with the assumption that he won't be back. Not that that means it's more likely, just that you have to protect yourself. That is the most important position. Trey Lance has gotten injured twice in 4 starts, three times if you want to count the preseason finger injury. So you can't assume, well, we'll wait for Brock Purdy surgery, and Brock Purdy surgery comes on the 16th or the 17th of March, and it's bad news. And now all the better free agent backups are already signed, and you're left holding the bag of, well, we hope Trey Lance stays healthy.
That's a good point, but the reverse might actually slow the market down. There may be a couple quarterbacks out there that are like, you know what, San Francisco is a pretty good landing spot for me. As someone who's
Right.
not going to start necessarily,
Right.
if I get in there, if I get a chance to play, I could really help my stock and my career. Maybe I'll wait a little before signing. So that it's going to be like an interesting dance. I can't wait to hear from Kyle and John at the combine next week, huh?
Yeah.
They're going to be in a great mood, aren't they?
Yeah. I would guess they'll probably avoid the media as much as possible. I don't see them being very open to interviews that they don't have to do. I don't see them, popping in for a minute or two here with this segment of the media and all that. They'll probably kind of shy away because right now they don't have a good answer. Hey, what are you
Well,
going to do? Oh,
Lynch will
we have
talk.
no clue because we don't know what our quarterback's going to be.
Lynch
So,
always talks.
yeah,
Kyle
that's
will
true.
make him go up there.
He's certainly going to talk at St. Elmo's after a few drinks. We know
Yeah,
that.
he is. It's almost worth flying down there just to sit next to him. I don't even have to ask him anything. Just sit next to him and listen to all his conversations. Um, I think it'll
Figure out
be
what place he's at and just send him free drinks.
it'll be really interesting because now we don't know, like, what's he going to say at the combine, right? He's going to say, well, he's going to downplay it, right?
Yeah,
He's going to say it's no big deal. It's just a
right.
little extra swelling. It's only a week. It's not going to delay his time frame. But here's the thing. The 6-month time frame, that also assumes that everything goes perfectly. It assumes he has the 6-month surgery. It assumes he has no
Mhm.
hiccups in rehab. It assumes he has no infections. It assumes he can ramp up his throwing. Like, that's the best case scenario.
Right.
And we don't really think about it or talk about it a lot as football fans. But like when guys have surgery, a lot of times it doesn't go totally according to plan. There are infections. There are things in rehab that pop up. It
Mhm.
happens more than we talk about.
There's one person I want to hear from because nobody really knows where he's at in terms of whether he's going to keep playing. I know he said at the end of the season that he feels like he has a lot of good football left or something along those lines, but I want to know where Matt Ryan is. I want to know if he actually does like Kyle Shanahan. He won an MVP with Kyle Shanahan, but Kyle Shanahan's hard on quarterbacks. He might not truly like playing for Kyle, even though he won an MVP. And Kyle, even though Matt Ryan won an MVP, might not actually be a huge fan of Matt Ryan. So, we don't know the truth behind those relationships. I guess if I had to pick that, yeah, they do like each other. And I think that would be a good fit, because if you're Matt Ryan, you got to be looking at it as he's looking for his swan song, right? What better swan song than, he can't be hoping for this, but the quarterback goes down, he gets to step into a contending team and makes a long playoff run. There's his swan song. Maybe it ends in a Super Bowl championship, maybe it doesn't. But you would think that his best potential for being the starting quarterback of a Super Bowl winning team this offseason is San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, it makes all the sense in the world. We know Kyle generally tends to favor guys he's familiar with. I did see a report that Matt Ryan was, quote, very interested in a career in broadcasting. I don't know necessarily if there's a spot for him. Now, maybe there is. Maybe a network will make a spot for him. God knows there's a couple people they could let go and football fans wouldn't be too upset. But, he's going to have to go through that too, right? Like, can he make, 5 million playing or 5 million broadcast? I don't know what the market would be for him as a not top tier analyst, but like, what would you rather do? If I was Matt Ryan, I would rather say, forget the NFL. Let me do the
Yeah, I mean,
broadcasting.
it depends. You gotta, it's not just the logical aspect of it, because the logic would say, yeah, I'd rather go into the broadcast booth. But there's the competitive aspect of it. He has not won a Super Bowl. He is a guy that if he had won a Super Bowl by now, nobody would be talking about whether or not he gets in the Hall of Fame. He'd be in the Hall of Fame. But as it is, he's probably not getting in. He's somebody that has a lot of the compiling stats because he started for a long time and did well. He just wasn't truly elite, except for arguably 1 year. But if he had a Super Bowl title, I think he would be a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame. So he's might be looking at it as, I just need a chance to get that Super Bowl, have my swan song, like I said. And if he can ride off into the sunset with a Super Bowl victory where he came in for, an injured Trey Lance, God forbid, that's like the ultimate grade A, can't beat it swan song for him. And it's, I think, the only avenue he has that has a somewhat decent chance of happening, because any other contending team is led by a quarterback that doesn't have this injury history.
It's kind of crazy. With Shanahan in 2016, Matt Ryan threw for almost 5,000 yards, 49-44, 38 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, right? Wins the MVP. A couple of years later in 2018 with Steve Sarkisian, he throws for 49-24, 35 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Pretty similar year. Now he had a lot of more. He had like 70 more pass attempts with Sarkisian, but everyone always talks about the 1 year with Matt Ryan and the MVP. It's like, well, he actually had 2 pretty damn good years.
His MVP came in a weird year, because his MVP season is honestly one of the worst MVP seasons of recent years. It's a great season. I don't want to put it down, but the way the NFL is now, the MVPs are, yeah, he had the yards that are around what an MVP has, but there are almost always 40 plus touchdowns these years. So it's kind of a weird year.
Derek Carr. Oh no, I was looking at the wrong column. My bad. I thought I was going to say Derek Carr threw more touchdowns than he did, but he didn't. 38 touchdowns, 7 picks for Matt Ryan. That was the year Brady only played 12 games too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a key factor. Although Aaron Rodgers did have 40 touchdowns and 7 picks that year. So
yeah, but not as good of a record. That's what got them.
Anyway, enough about Matt Ryan. But the runway's there for Trey to reclaim the starting job, which is wild, because I feel like he went from.
He doesn't have to reclaim it. The starting job is his. It's whether or not he plays poorly enough that they go to somebody else, whether that's Brock returning or whatever.
I feel like he went from, you're the starter, you're hurt, Jimmy's there. Jimmy's taking the job back. Jimmy's hurt. Okay, Trey, get healthy next year. You're the guy again. Oh, wait, here comes Brock Purdy. not losing a game, throwing 2 touchdowns every week. Now it's Brock Purdy's job, and Trey's going to have to catch up. And then Brock Purdy goes down in the NFC Championship game. And guess what, Trey? You got a chance to take the job again. In less than a year, that's the journey that Trey Lance has been on, and he's only had 4 career starts.
Yeah, I'm excited. Obviously, I'm a big Trey Lance guy. Was on that train very early, and I'm still on that train. I still believe Trey Lance is going to be a really good quarterback. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, my motto this offseason is give Lance a chance, and I mean it. I think Lance is our best opportunity. I think Brock is a safe, reliable that might be good enough to get a Super Bowl in one of these years, but I don't think he has elite level high side. I don't think he has that, and I think Lance does. So I want to see what Lance can do. And if he doesn't pan out, then so be it. You figure it out after that, whether that's going back to Brock if Brock gets back healthy, or diving back into the NFL draft just as those first round picks start to be a thing again for the 49ers.
Hey, did you see the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, Caleb Williams, listed teams that he wants to play for? He listed the Raiders. He listed somebody else that I can't remember, and the Niners. There was 3 teams on his list, and the Niners were on it. And he's going to be in the 2024 draft probably, and that first round pick is back.
Yeah, but that first round pick is very likely to be in the upper 20s at best.
No, yeah, but you know what? They didn't have the 3rd overall pick the year they took Trey Lance.
No,
they
had
found a
12.
way to get there. So
You're not getting there from 27, 28, 29, 30.
You can get there. Sure you can. You just will. What are you willing to give up? That's the question. But again, we're jumping ahead. I'm rooting for Trey. I really hope he's back. I really hope he gets the chance. And just, I feel like people are expecting him to be a finished product at OTAs, right? Like the scrutiny he's going to be under, his first pass is going to be like, oh, it's not a perfect spiral. Oh, it was a little high. He's not any better. He's the same guy. He stinks. It's over. It's like, no, that's the beginning of the journey, not the end. Like, to me, and this is something that Jason Aponte said when Lance was a rookie, and I totally agreed. It's not about any one particular day. It's about the progression. How much does Lance improve from day one to the end of OTAs, from the beginning of training camp to the end of training camp? That's really what you want to see, because that's what it's always been about with Trey. It's never been about where he is right now. It's about where we think he can be and reaching that ceiling that everybody seems to think he has.
I just want to see him stay healthy. And my thought process is if he stays healthy, all of that will take care of itself.
Right. I agree. I think it will too. I hope it will. God, at least give me an answer to the question by the end, whether it's good or bad, right? I hate uncertainty. Right now, I'm dealing with a lot of uncertainty. I don't know where I'm going to work. I'm trying to find a job. I'm applying to places every single day. I hate this part of it. The waiting is crushing me. I would rather
you got one certainty. You're stuck with this guy.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm clinically depressed. No, but like, honestly, I would rather click the apply button and instantly get a response. You're in or you're out, than the waiting. The waiting is killing me. I don't deal well with it. And we've been waiting since 2021 to see Trey Lance, and we still haven't. And I can't take it anymore.
Well, you're going to have to figure out how to take it because you got no choice.
I know. That's the hardest part.
Look, like you said, the runway is there. It's not he can earn the starting job back. It's he has the starting job. He will be, if he's healthy, starting week 1, because at this point, Purdy won't be back for week 1. I think you can count on that. He will not be ready to go 100% week 1 where they're going to throw him back out there. So Trey Lance has his opportunity, and it's his job to lose, pretty much. That's the way I would look at it. If he does everything he's supposed to, he's going to get the opportunity to show that, and that means it's his job to lose.
I'm not so sure about that. I think that if Brock Purdy can throw a football, he's going to be the starter week 1. Because remember, Kyle talked about like, oh, he doesn't have to ramp up after the 6 months. He'll be ready to go after the 6 months. I could see Kyle pushing him to come back a little early, honestly.
You would hope Kyle has learned his lesson on that crap. Hey, this really terrible injury that if it was a little bit worse means you would have been out twice as long and likely not ever been the same quarterback again. Let's push you back early. Let's push the agenda here. Yeah, that
But
sounds like a great idea.
it's a dicey situation though, right? Because if you're Brock, you're itching to go early too, right? Because you're like, I can't wait. I can't afford to wait. What if I wait and Trey comes in and plays great and then I never get another shot again? So it is a very dicey situation with the way they're going to have to handle all that.
It is, and if I'm Brock Purdy, I don't push it. It's better to be the backup than be on IR.
I asked this question to Jason and Steph, and they didn't really answer it to my satisfaction. And I feel like I'll get a definitive answer for you. Let's say Brock is back, right? But Trey's been killing it. But they're both ready to go week one. And the quarterback competition, for lack of a better term, is tied. Who do you think gets the edge? Does Brock get the edge because of everything he did last year? Or does Trey get the edge because they moved up to 3, they gave up all those picks, and they do think he has a high ceiling?
Okay, so I'm speaking from basically Kyle Shanahan's point of view, since he would get to make that choice. Is that how you're wanting, or my own personal
Both. I want
opinion?
both.
For Kyle, it's Brock Purdy. I think he's
I
made that
agree.
clear. For me, you know what Brock Purdy is, or at least you have a much better idea of what he is, and it's really good. But like I said, he doesn't have the same high side. So if I'm Kyle in that scenario, and a lot of this I think would depend on the locker room. I think this is one of those scenarios that if you personally think they're equal and you're fine with going with either one of them, I would probably gauge from your leaders, your captains, okay, is the team going to be pissed if Purdy's ready to go and then we don't go back to him since he won that locker room last year? Or are they seeing what I'm seeing, where Lance is just taking it to a whole new level and we're seeing all that potential come to fruition, and thus we need to give him the opportunity? Because that's the position I would say. If Lance is looking good enough to where Kyle is hesitating to go back to Brock, something that he knows what it is,
Right.
then you need to see what that is. You need to give Lance a chance, like I said, and see how it goes for 4 games. Now, is that a big sample size? Is that unfair to Trey? Yeah, because he hasn't gotten that many opportunities. So giving him only 4 games to prove it sucks for him. But at the same time, it's a contending team. And when you have a guy that you think has a very good chance of being good, maybe not elite, but good, you don't get as long of a leash as you normally would. So that would be my personal perspective. If Trey Lance looks like he has progressed from the previous offseason,
Right.
you need to see how he can progress with game experience.
Everything you said there is logical and reasonable. And I get that, like, if they really are tied, you need a tiebreaker, and who the locker room wants is as good a tiebreaker as any. But how much faith can we really put in what the locker room wants, right? The locker room wanted Jimmy. And guess what? Brock came in, played well, and now all of a sudden they want Brock. Like, the locker room is fickle. They will like whoever comes in and wins. That's proven. They love Jimmy because he won. They love Brock because he won. Like, it's not like, there's some sort of secret quality that those two guys have that separate them. Locker rooms always like quarterbacks that win. So I get what you're saying, but at the same time, it's like, I don't put too much stock in it. One, because they'll like anyone that wins. And two, what are they going to do if they don't like the starter? Are they not going to play? Like, what is the big consequence that you're so terrified of?
Right. I will say that I think Kyle Shanahan has enough leeway. He's been around, he's won enough that he could go to Trey Lance. And even if the locker room wanted Purdy and is mad about it, you have some veterans mad about it or whatever, and the team doesn't win and they start out, 1-3 or something like that, I would think that they wouldn't pretty much turn on Kyle. If then Kyle flipped back to Purdy, I think they would still be on board. You know what I mean? Like he's been around, they've won with him. So I don't think it's the same situation as say like an inexperienced court or coach who's still trying to establish himself, still trying to prove that he is the guy playing this quarterback situation and fumbling it, for lack of a better way to put it, then losing the locker room permanently and it all going downhill from there. So I would think Kyle has the ability to go, I know you guys want him, but we're going to see what Trey can do. And if it doesn't work out, we'll deal with that then.
I hope, but I could also see a scenario where Kyle calls Trey into his office and says, "Hey, Trey, you've been playing really well. You and Brock are neck and neck, but I just think we're going to go with Brock. The locker room is really behind him, and we're going to make that move. If I'm Trey Lance, I'm like, oh, really? The locker room is behind Brock? You mean your buddies that you go on vacation with every year, like Brock Purdy? Like, that's not a good situation. I don't like Shanahan vacationing with those guys. You need separation. Shanahan is supposed to be here, and the players are supposed to be here, lower, beneath him. It's a superior subordinate situation. I don't like that he's going on vacation with those guys. I think if anything, it will lead him to put too much stock in what they think and what they say.
I could care less what vacations Kyle Shanahan takes and who he takes with. But I would say that I can see a scenario where Kyle is the arrogant version that we know exists, and he doesn't even ask for opinions. He just does what he wants. And
that's
hey,
not what Deebo
quarterback,
said,
this
though.
is my offense.
Deebo said he doesn't do anything without asking the players.
Yeah, I know.
Are you calling
Well,
Deebo Samuel a liar?
no, but I do think in certain situations, Kyle Shanahan could inflict his power and say, yeah, I think this is the best option at quarterback. I'm going with it. I don't need players' input on it.
I think that's how they ended up with Trey Lance in the first place. But we'll move on. Tim Kawakami has an offseason prediction column. One of his offseason predictions is that Trey Lance will have a very strong offseason. Not necessarily the boldest of takes, but there was something in there that bugged you a little bit.
Yeah, it was a report from a practice prior to his injury early last year where he said Trey Lance lined up wrong, and I think he said Juice had to correct him, and that he thinks, he used that as like he thinks Trey Lance will be more confident and not be trying so hard and be better, and that's why he's going to rise. But I saw that report, and it's like, you're telling us this now? Like, if that happened and you saw it, that means that happened when it was open media, and
True.
thus it should have been reported on by a lot of different people. That the quarterback lining up wrong, even in practice, is somewhat noteworthy. I'm not
Especially
saying you
when it's
need to go, oh, Trey Lance is terrible, but it'd be, hey, Trey Lance lined up wrong on this play. Maybe he's struggling to pick things up.
it could have been as simple as Trey Lance looked a little nervous. He actually lined up in the wrong spot for a play. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have,
How is
like
that
you
not
said,
reported by anybody?
right?
That's what bothers me. And that's honestly always been my rub with the whole 49ers press corps, that I think they do sit on crap like that.
Oh yeah, they do. And then what bothers me is what you said. Then it comes out later, right? When they're
Mhm.
almost like kicking a
They
guy when
use
he's
it when it's
down.
convenient. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't just tell us what happens. That's your whole reason for being there, because we can't be there. So just tell us what happens and we can make our own judgments about it. I don't like all the horse trading that goes on. Oh, I won't talk about this, but if you give me an interview with this guy, or you let me have access to this, you let me sit in the draft room. I hate all that horse trading. It's one of the reasons why I think me being in Connecticut and you being, not in California, I think that's helpful sometimes because we do have that kind of distance. We don't have that temptation of, hey, let me give you the access versus, shaping the message, changing the message as it goes out. I don't like that. That's a good thing by you that you caught, because I actually
It
didn't
is.
see that
You
part of it.
need both. You need both of that type. You need one or two guys that are going to do the horse trading, because that does give you access that otherwise would not exist. What Peter King gets or has gotten, I'm totally fine with. The problem is when everybody does it, except for one person, and that one person then gets ostracized and basically given as minimal chance as possible, Grant Cohn, to ask questions and all. I mean, you see it. We've all seen it. Grant Cohn asks a question. It's a quick answer. Normally purposely tries not to answer the question, and then nobody else follows up. And that's my problem, is that it seems like everybody in that press corps wants to horse trade. It's like, no, only the people that actually have the ability, that have gotten close enough and managed to be able to horse trade and get something out of it in return, should be doing that. That's my issue. Is it seems like there's a horse trading going on where they don't even get the exclusives in return.
Right. It's just all benefiting the
It's
team and
just,
not
well, hopefully
benefiting
I'm
us.
next in line after this reporter to get
After
this.
Mayoko gets his annual interview or
Yeah.
Greg Papa gets it. I mean, yeah, it's very frustrating. just report everything as it happens. But there's some other stuff in the column, the prediction column from Kawakami, that's interesting. He thinks Jimmy Garoppolo will sign with an NFC South team, either the Saints or the Bucks. And then he says the Niners will sign Jacoby Brissett as quarterback insurance. Now, I think he's crazy because I think Brissett wants to start and played well enough last season to be a starter. But if that one comes true, that would be a huge win for the 49ers. I would absolutely take Jacoby Brissett on the team.
That's who I said would be like my top choice. A month ago when we first started talking about this? I just don't see how it can happen because there's another aspect here. Jacoby Brissett has never been paid the big money. You know what I mean? Like some of these people, like Andy Dalton, he's had a big contract. He's made a lot of money. Joe Flacco's made a lot of money. They might be willing to take a little bit less money to get onto a contending team with the opportunity of maybe getting to start because there's an injury-prone player in front of them. Jacoby Brissett isn't there. I don't see him taking a pay cut. He's somebody that's been making $5-10 million every year. He hasn't had that big $20+ million year.
Oh, I thought there was more there. No.
No.
Brissett.
That's enough.
He played better than Deshaun Watson played last year by far. 12 touchdowns, 6 picks, threw for 163 yards a game. Like that's exactly what you want out of your backup quarterback. He also ran in a couple touchdowns. Like that would be a steal by the 49ers if they could work some sort of magic to make that happen. So if there's one prediction for this column I want to be correct, it might be that one.
You know, that would be the second of the trio piece, right? Get that old New England quarterback room. There'd just be one left to get.
I just can't get the one they actually want. Guaranteed they make a call to try and get Brady, by the way. But moving on.
I would say they have at least reached out.
100%. Prediction 4 from Kawakami, the Niners will acquire a healthy defensive tackle to replace Javon Kinlaw. You think, Tim? That's not exactly a bold prediction. That's Tim making sure he doesn't go over in his offseason predictions.
Yeah, because they have to replace the guy that has not been available. And when he was available, he was getting tossed around as if Rob Stats Guerrero was out there playing.
How dare you? I could fill some of those gaps.
At least you would probably fall down and like stand, be in front of them and limit their ability to get out and block further downfield. But no, like they have to. Like Kinlaw is, if they don't move on from him to begin with, if he's still on the roster, it's almost the Jason Verrett of this past year.
Yes.
Hey, you're here because we can't get. I mean, that wasn't Verrett, but in his scenario, it'd be, hey, you're here because we can't get rid of you. So if you turn into anything, great. But we brought in these other guys to take your job, and unless you suddenly miraculously find a new knee, you're not going to have much of a role.
Kinlaw missed 11 games this year, and he had the lowest run grade of any 49ers defender.
Which is insane because that's what he's supposed to excel at.
28.8, according to Pro Football Focus. And I get it, PFF isn't everything, but damn, 28.8 is really low. And you're right. Like the one thing that Kinlaw was supposed to give you is somebody that doesn't get pushed around. And we absolutely saw him getting pushed around. Maybe not as bad as it looked on Twitter, because I know Eric Armstead came to his defense, but some of those plays were Kinlaw's fault. And that's not supposed to happen when you take a guy, 13th overall in the first round?
It sucks. Like I do feel bad for Kinlaw because I do think his issue is the fact that his knee is shot.
Yeah.
And he can't hold his ground because if you have one knee, the offensive line is just going to push you. Like you have to be able to dig in as a defensive lineman, especially as a defensive tackle. You've got to be able to dig in and hold your ground, and you can't when you have one knee. So I feel bad for him because I think it is injury and it's just bad luck. But I mean, there's a difference between me feeling bad for him in the human element and what he brings to this team. And what he brings to this team is nothing. He should not be counted on. They have to bring in somebody else.
And they also have Kalia Davis, too, who's a defensive tackle who was hurt coming back from an ACL all this year. He's probably going to get a shot to get some of the snaps as well. Prediction 5, from Kawakami. This is interesting. He predicts the Niners are going to...
We don't get to 6 with the 49ers.
Oh. Too soon. Kawakami predicts that McGlinchey and Robbie Gould will re-sign. Now, I don't think McGlinchey is going to re-sign because somebody's going to give him the bag.
Yeah, like McGlinchey's gone. Gold, I can see that. I mean, it's not like there's a huge free agent kicker market. You're kind of always wading into the unknown. The Niners have done it extremely well, I would argue, over the last 10, 12 years because, from David Akers to then Phil Dawson, Robbie Gould, they've kind of hit pay dirt getting these older veteran kickers.
Akers was sketchy as hell in 2012.
In 2012, but he set the record for most field goals the prior year.
Yes, he did. That's a Jim Harbaugh special, by the way.
Yeah. Well,
Fourth
no, that's
down.
a Greg Roman
Akers!
special. That's a Greg Roman special. But yeah, so I think Gold will probably be back. I would say that's more likely than not. McGlinchey, I think the chances of him being back are extremely low. Somebody is going to give him at least 14, 15 million a year. And I think it probably pushes more than that. And I don't think the Niners can afford anywhere close to that.
That's the thing. They're not going to win a bidding war with anybody for Mike McGlinchey.
Right. It's not that the 49ers would be unwilling to pay him that. It's that they can't with the way their cap situation is.
I think that would be the best thing for the Niners would be bringing McGlinchey back, but I just don't think there's only so much money you have to give around, and he's going to get another offer. I wouldn't bring Gold back unless it's super cheap. Like I would not give him the franchise tag.
He doesn't get the amount that he's been getting.
Right. The tag this year is like $5 million and change. It would make him the second highest kicker behind Justin Tucker. And Robbie Gould is not that good. I'm sorry. He made 84% of his kicks this year. That was below his career average of 86.5%. And everyone's going to love to tout the whole Robbie Gould's never missed a kick in the playoffs thing. But that doesn't mean he's never going to miss a kick in the playoffs. And first, you got to get to the playoffs. So I'm sorry. I would not be upset. You can't put that much money into a kicker. When you're in the salary cap situation the 49ers have, $5 million for 40-year-old Robbie Gould, I don't like it. And you know what? I think the Niners are going to end up doing it, Levin. The only time they ever used the franchise tag in the Shanahan Lynch regime was on Robbie Gould in 2019. Now they reworked the contract, whatever, but I don't like it. I don't like it at all, and I don't want Robbie Gould back.
I would personally rather see them chase one of the other available kickers. I mean,
or just draft one.
Well, that too. Like I've never understood that. Even going to college, like I've never understood why teams out there don't go find me the kicker. Because I will tell you this, and I know this from firsthand experience. There are a lot of people in high school that are capable of being really, really good kickers, much better than your average college kicker, and potentially NFL level kickers that never go to college for that because literally nobody comes and, they're just kicking for their high school. And
how do you know this information?
Because
what's that based off of?
The fact that I know somebody that was capable of doing it, the fact that I could hit 50-yard field goals when I was in high school. Like, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of soccer players that are capable of doing it. The guy who kicked for my high school, he was also a soccer player. I played with him from 6th grade on. We were same class. I didn't kick because I didn't want to compete against him. I wish I would have, in retrospect, beat him to kicking. But he could hit. He was extremely accurate. If it was 40 yards and in, he was making it, and he was capable of hitting 45 to 50 yards. He literally went to Northwestern on a full scholarship academically. Academically. He never was asked to kick. Their kicker for Northwestern literally could not make a field goal. Like a lot of college kickers can't make a field goal. They're terrible. He was somebody that could make them automatically. Like I think he made something like almost 90% of his kicks in high school. And I used to kick around because I obviously love football, but I played soccer. I wasn't as accurate as he was from underneath, but the longest I ever hit was 55 yards just in practicing.
So you're saying you could have been an NFL kicker? To be clear,
maybe if I really dove into it. I just did it on my own accord because I love doing it. I used to be able to punt a 45-yard punt.
Dude, you sound like that guy. Like, oh, I would have made the NBA if I didn't hurt my
I'm not
knee.
saying it's likely. I don't know what it is because I never truly like it was something I literally, when I was bored in summer, I would go out and go to a soccer field or a football field and just punt the ball and use a tee to kick the ball, a football, because I was bored. And I loved doing that. I wish I would have pursued it. I'm not saying I would have definitely made the NFL or anywhere close to having a high percentage, but I know I did have the leg strength, certainly, to have been at that level. It's just whether or not I could have gotten the accuracy to the point of having an actual shot,
Right.
which is, by the way, a lot more people struggle with accuracy than the actual leg strength.
So in other words, you have no idea about 50% of the job, but you're sure you could have been an NFL kicker.
No. I was also left-footed, and that causes a
Does
whole
that
problem
help?
and wrinkle. No.
All right.
Think about your holder. How do they train to hold their entire
Yeah,
time?
that's a good point.
It changes everything.
Yeah. Prediction number 6 from Tim Kawakami. The Niners will draft several offensive linemen in their first few picks. I support this theory because I don't give a crap who the starting quarterback is. You can make that guy 1,000 times better if you have a good offensive line, and the Niners do have some work to do on theirs.
Yeah, I don't want to see any third-round running backs. I want to see I want to see defensive line and offensive line. I want to see 5 or 6 of those drafted. I don't care that you're overdrafting and some of these guys will probably never see the field for the 49ers. Take your shots because you never know when they're going to pan out. And if you take enough shots, somebody's going to pan out.
Yeah, just keep getting the more lottery tickets you buy, the better your chances are of winning. I like it. I want to see if Jason Poe emerges as a possibility next year. Nick Zakel, a couple picks from last year that we haven't heard much from, but they need to restock. Trent Williams is getting up there. There's some questions on the interior of the offensive line. We don't know what's going to happen with Jake Brendel, so they've got work to do there. So investing there is smart, and I think the Niners will because they've basically told us, and their drafts have shown us they build the team from the inside out, from the lines of scrimmage out. So I think they will. I'm not worried about that one. How about this one, Levin? This is something that you and I talked about. It's the last prediction in the column. Prediction 7. The Niners won't seriously consider trading Deebo Samuel, but they might do some groundwork for next offseason.
Okay. Like, how are you proven wrong on that one? That's one you can claim you're right even if nothing happens.
That's true.
But I don't think that's I don't think that's bold because I think most people at this point are assuming that the Niners will at least look into what they could get for Deebo. Not that they'll definitely do it, but they're quickly running out of money and they got to find it somewhere. And if Ayuk has emerged and is truly the wide receiver on this team, which is what we saw with Brock Purdy, by the way, Ayuk took off under Brock Purdy. Then at that point, you got to go, well, we want to pay Ayuk. If we pay Ayuk, we can have cheaper in this next couple of years. Whereas Deebo has gotten expensive, we can trade him and afford to sign Ayuk. They will likely have to make that choice after this next season. They will have to make the choice between trading Ayuk or trading Deebo.
And I know that, and this is something that you've given him a lot of credit for, and I agree. Like, he does stress the defense, just his presence, because he's so versatile and he can line up in different spots. He does do all of that, but just strictly from a production standpoint, I mean, he caught 56 passes last year for 632 yards and had 2 receiving touchdowns. Now, he also chipped in with some rushing touchdowns, we all know, but like, you know, going into last offseason, we were like, oh my God, you can't get rid of Deebo Samuel. He's so important. He was so great. He was so amazing. And this year, 1 year later, you're like, So
yeah, it's because defense is adjusted. If he's in the backfield, they're making damn sure that he can't get any daylight. I think defenses swarmed to him better than they did. I think they keyed on that, wherever Deebo is, safeties be paying attention so that you can get there sooner. And even in his big year, and I mentioned this last offseason, he only had 77 catches. So it's not like he was this high volume guy. It's just that he broke free on so many of them that he was able to get 1,400 receiving yards. That's not likely to be something that you can do consistently. Obviously, after the catch, Deebo is as good as it gets in the league, but you're not going to break so many of them. And I have said I don't think Deebo is that good of an actual wide receiver, just strictly wide receiver part of it. Obviously, he has a big effect, like you were saying, on everything because everybody has to key on him. But do you pay a premium for that effect?
That's the
Especially when you have somebody else that's now able to have that effect on the underneath stuff in Christian McCaffrey.
That's the big question. It's clearly there's an impact and there's an effect and it's valuable. It's absolutely valuable, but is it top of the market value when you're not also getting
Right.
the actual
I
production?
think Christian McCaffrey did nerf Deebo to a certain extent. I think it's pretty easy, and I don't think anybody should be arguing to say that a good bit of the Christian McCaffrey catches would have been Deebo catches if Christian McCaffrey had not been acquired.
That's
And
fair.
thus, Deebo likely would have ended up with, 70, 75 catches and closer to 1,000 yards. And we wouldn't be having as big of a conversation about this because he would have had a bigger year. But Christian McCaffrey does a lot of what Deebo did. A lot of those underneath are now Christian McCaffrey. You don't need to have Deebo doing that. So Deebo's value is nerfed to a certain degree.
Plus, you can have Deebo blocking for Christian McCaffrey, which is not a bad thing. I do think that that's sort of an under the radar storyline for next year. How does Kyle Shanahan evolve in his usage of all these parts now, right? Because he was sort of changing the tire on a moving car during the year. They acquired McCaffrey. He kind of had to figure it out, right? And
A
he
moving car
did.
that was changing,
And it was
changing
changing
drivers.
drivers too,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
drivers and tires. But now he's got the whole offseason to tinker, basically, and I'm sure he's going to. So that'll be a fascinating thing to see how it evolves, especially if Trey Lance is there. That's the thing. If Lance is there, then you talk about stress on a defense between Lance and McCaffrey and Deebo and Kittle. You could put any of those people and Juice. You could put any of them in the backfield. You could put any of them out wide. You could do anything with any of them. And now you have to also worry about Trey Lance as a runner. That would be an evolution of this offense. And I just want to see it so bad.
Yeah, I do want to see it. But if Trey Lance pans out, and everything you're saying is true, but everything you just said, there are a lot of shorter underneath. Like, who's stretching the field at that point? That would become the question. Hey, who can stretch this defense out and stop them from cheating down? That's why Ayuk is so valuable. That's what he does. He stretches the field. And we saw when you get a quarterback who isn't scared to throw it more than 10 yards, even though he doesn't, I would say Brock Purdy didn't have any stronger of an arm than Jimmy Garoppolo does. Brock Purdy allowed Ayuk to show what he is. He is a ridiculously good route runner who, if you throw with anticipation, will be open a lot.
With a crazy catch radius, too. Really long arms. Like, it's so good there. And that kind of leads me into the final thing that we're going to talk about today, because Taylor Lewan is a free agent. He's a left tackle that was cut by the Tennessee Titans after 9 years with the team, 3-time Pro Bowler. He said he's talked about retirement. I know a lot of Niner fans some think he'll be a low cost option. I wouldn't say that. If he wants to play, he won't be cheap. But I don't want the 49ers to continue with this good enough mentality. Like, I feel like sometimes that's their viewpoint when they acquire players or when they decide who starts. Like, okay, this person's good enough. Like, quarterback, we don't need a superstar quarterback. We just need a quarterback that could be a point guard, that could be good enough. No, you don't. No, you don't. You need a superstar. When you have a superstar roster, don't look to acquire guys that are good enough. Look to go in for the kill. Look to go. What did Warren Buffett say? When they asked Warren Buffett, how did you make all that money? He said, when everybody was cautious, I was greedy. And when everybody was greedy, I was cautious. Well, you know what? It's time to be greedy, 49ers. Don't go for these nibbling little adjustments on the end. Go for the hammer.
You don't pay for above average, in my opinion. In the NFL, you pay a premium for star level players. And in order to be able to afford your star level players, you look to the draft to replace guys like Lewan. Lewan used to be great.
Mm-hmm.
He is not what he used to be. He's not bad. Look, my brother's a Titans fan. I know quite a bit about Taylor Lewan. in terms of his attitude and locker room, he is their George Kittle. He's a very outgoing persona, very loud type persona who drove that locker room and was a fan favorite. Problem is, he's missed 30 games in the last 3 seasons. Just can't count on him. And I'm losing my voice.
Yeah, can't count on Levin's voice either. For context, he had a 67.3 PFF grade last year. He played 64 offensive snaps. Is that accurate? That's upsetting. Yep. We don't need more of that on the team.
Basically, he had an injury, came back from it, and got injured again. The Jimmy Garoppolo special.
Elijah Mitchell special. There's too many guys. Yeah, he only played in 2 games. I just don't know that you can do that. That's the one thing you can't do if you're the Niners. Enough of these injury, hoping this guy stays healthy stuff. It didn't work with Jason Verrett. It didn't work with Jimmy Garoppolo. Hasn't worked with Elijah Mitchell. You can't have that next year. And that's why I think Elijah Mitchell's got an uphill battle, frankly. I don't know if you saw this. David Lombardi and Matt Barrows have they do these breakdowns every year. They're awesome after the season. They go through every position group on the team and they really dig in and gave you some really cool numbers. And they did the running backs this week. And there was a line in there. Basically, it was like, don't lump in Ty Davis-Price with Trey Sermon. The team is way higher. They speak way higher about Ty Davis-Price than they did about Trey Sermon. And I think with Elijah Mitchell's injury problems, I wouldn't be shocked at all if TDP has a bigger role on the team next year.
A couple things. One, did you see, and I don't put a ton of weight into PFF, who the highest rated running back was if you eliminate snap count as a minimum snap count?
Yes, it was Jordan Mason, who had the most yards after average yards after contact of any running back in the league last year. He didn't get enough carries to qualify, but if you remove that, Jordan Mason was number 1. Did you see his
pass blocking grade on that?
I did not.
It was in the 90s.
Ooh.
Yeah. So like I've said before, PFF, I don't put a lot of weight in, this guy ranked 3rd, this guy ranked 5th. To me, was this guy good? Was this guy mediocre? Was this guy bad? It means Jordan Mason was good. And then you have TDP on top of it. I will say that it would not shock me, although I think that would be considered the big shock of the offseason, if Eli Mitchell ends up in, say, Tennessee.
Rand Carthon was speaking glowingly of him at his press conference as
let's say TDP, GM. Jordan Mason show up. They've improved. The rookie part of it is gone. You think they can count on them? And I'm losing my voice again. I don't know what's going on. I've never lost my voice, by the way. But at that point, if they show up to training camp and they're good, pick up the phone. Hey, will you give us a 5th, a 6th?
I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for a 5th round pick for Elijah Mitchell. You drafted him in the 6th, I think it was. So, I mean, they'd have to be willing to count on a guy that's banged up. But if it's Tennessee, you got Derrick Henry there. So you're not going to give the ball to Elijah Mitchell, 300 times a year. So maybe you're hoping that that's going to help with his health. And that would be a hell of a 1-2 combo for the Titans.
And we just heard their GM talk about what went into drafting Eli Mitchell because he was with the 49ers. So that GM's probably pretty high on him.
I would imagine so. That was a great story that Carthon told, by the way, where one of the staffers said, analytically, Elijah Mitchell looks like the best zone runner in this entire draft class, but they took it to Rand Carthon. He was like, can you watch the film and see if the numbers are backed up by what your eyes tell you? And Carthon watched it and was like, yes, they do. So then they took it to Kyle Shanahan. And that was sort of the process, which is just an awesome behind the scenes thing. And of course, D'Amico Ryans was expecting a linebacker to be drafted in that spot. And then they were watching the film of Elijah Mitchell during the draft. And they were like, this guy's better. And they ended up taking Elijah Mitchell. And in a great find, by the way, shout out to Leo Luna, because on Twitter, he pointed out that no linebacker taken after Elijah Mitchell has a single sack or 30 career solo tackles. So they made the right choice taking Elijah Mitchell.
Yes, they did. And like I said, if they enter the season and they see enough from those other two to where Eli Mitchell is potentially being a 3rd, 4th string, why not see what you can get?
I mean, they did it with oh my God, Jeff Wilson, right? They got Christian McCaffrey and they unloaded Jeff Wilson because they just didn't need him anymore. Good on the Niners. Like you mentioned earlier, the more draft picks you have, the better your chances are of hitting on them. So I would not be shocked at all if that happens. Taylor Lewan, $14 million a year. You want him?
No, not even close to that. By the way, if you think he's coming dirt cheap, like say a vet minimum, he has a 2 million and something amount that he gets if he ends up not playing due to an injury guarantee. So basically you have to pay him more than vet minimum for it to even be worth it to him. You're looking, I'm betting he gets somewhere like 9-10 million a year. Somebody will pay him as a 3-time Pro Bowler, still 31. Somebody will pay him 8, 9, 10 million a year.
If he wants to play. I don't know. You said he's been banged up. Maybe he just says, forget it. But yeah, look, this is what we do now, right? Somebody gets released. We immediately filter it through the 49ers lens. I'm going to say pass on Taylor Lewan. They're going to, I agree with you. I don't want them to just give the job to McKivitz, but that doesn't mean you just sign anybody that happens to get released. And I've heard that this draft is a good draft for offensive linemen. Not going to lie, haven't really dug into it too deeply. But you know, if it is, then you shouldn't sign Taylor Lewan. You should try and find one of those draft picks. You have 11 picks in this draft. You can use one of them on an offensive lineman.
You can use 2.
That's allowed.
Like,
that was one of Tim's predictions.
They have so many picks this year. They don't have that many roster spots once free agency and all that is figured out. So, like I said, take multiple shots into the barrel.
Doesn't the bullet come out of the barrel?
Not if
Are you talking like shooting fish in a barrel?
Yeah.
Okay, that was weird. Do better.
Maybe you just not very good with analogies.
I'm not very good with analogies. You made a confusing analogy. Don't blame me.
I guess leave it in our reviews if you didn't get my more shots in the barrel reference.
Yes.
Were you thinking barrel of the gun?
Prepare for defeat.
I see what you're saying.
Yes, of course that's what I was saying, because that's what any rational person would say after that comment from you.
It was an analogy.
It was dumb. You think about that all this week. You sit with that.
Yes. I will definitely be thinking about that. I mean, all I do, honestly, is rehash our podcast every week and learn, boy, how can I get as good as Rob?
When your head hits the pillow and it's just you in the dark thinking about your day, you'll think of it. You won't want to, but it's going to pop into your head now. And there's nothing you could do about it.
When my head hits the pillow, normally my hand is reaching over to mess with my wife.
Don't want to know any more about anything that
happens.
I'm
not saying in that way. I mean, when you got somebody that's stuck with you until death do you part, you can poke them and all that. And
yeah,
that made it sound even worse. I wasn't meaning it in that way.
I don't think that line is in there to test the bounds of that promise, Levin. I'm pretty sure.
I poke her in the side all the time with my finger.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Enjoy the week. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube page, youtube.com/@statsonfire. Please rate, review, and follow the podcast network, Gold Standard Podcast Network, Niners Nation Podcast Network. I promise you, hopefully by the end of this week, we'll have some developments there to make it a lot easier for you to find us. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you next week.